WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call or text 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on this 2nd of March. Hard to believe it's March already, but it is. And looking at the weather, brisk and chilly today in the 20s, but it's warming up a little bit later in the week. So maybe get out and drag the hose back out and wash the car, clean it up, get it all ready. Maybe you're thinking about buying a new car, and our friends at iccars.com. We'll talk about them in just a minute, but they came up with the most reliable new cars for the money for 2025. And with us is Karl Brauer, executive analyst for iccars.com, but he's calling from a pretty cool place today. Good morning, Karl, and thanks for joining us again on the Car Doctor program.
Hey, John. Great to be on with you, and I am calling from a cool place, so cool that I decided not to go to the Pomona swap meet because it was going to be cold and rainy today. And I was like, I'm not going to go out there if I'm going to be standing in rain. And I know a lot of other people aren't going to go out at all because they don't want to stand in rain and cut down my potential customer base.
So how are you going to get rid of all that stuff you've collected over the years?
Isn't that the question we're all asking ourselves? They have this about every 6 weeks, so I'll try again. You know, it honestly gets bigger and more popular as you get into the warmer months anyways. So I'll try again in a few weeks.
And it starts at 5 a.m., right?
It's crazy. Like, if you really want to get there when everyone's rolling in and get your spot, you need to be there about 5 a.m.
That's crazy talk. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it is.
But on the other hand, I bet there's some cool stuff you can find at the Pomona swap meet. And if, like you said, if you have stuff that sort of has been sitting around for a long while, probably a good way to get rid of it too.
I've done it once before out there, and I was pretty happy with what went away and how much money came in on it. And it is a cornucopia of automotive and related things too. I mean, you're supposed to go out there with automotive stuff, but let's be honest, people go out there and they have like all their old DVDs, you know, stuff that they would otherwise probably just throw away and they haven't looked at for years, and they put $1, $2 sticky notes on them, Post-it notes on them, and people buy them up. So yeah, you can go there and sell a lot of stuff.
Well, it sounds pretty good. I'm disappointed it's raining and cool today, but and you know the other issue is, and anybody who will ask, I'm not very good with geography. Hopefully, where you live was away from all the California fires.
So yeah, interesting story there. Where we were fine. I have a house where I lived for years in Camarillo, and I still own it, halfway to Santa Barbara from L.A. It had fires. There were fires there in December, probably within a mile of my house. The houses were burned down, but mine survived that one. And then there were fires in the Palisades, as you know, the ones you're probably referencing, massive fires there. And I wasn't there, but my father-in-law was there. But 4 houses on his street of 15, his cul-de-sacs, survived, and his was one of them.
Oof. Well, that's good luck. I know I just watched a Adam Carolla video, and he was at his condo, and I was looking at the destruction all around it, and his condo had a little fire that started on the roof but didn't catch on to anything. But just the idea that those fires were so devastating, kind of just, I guess you're happy when you get out okay. So. Yeah,
I was glad he got out. Shocked that his house survived, not totally unscathed, probably like Adam Carolla's, but essentially, replaced some warped siding that got a little melted on the side of the house, and a couple other minor things, and the house is fine.
I don't know, between California fires, floods, and Florida hurricanes, I don't know, the world's trying to tell us something. I don't know what it is yet, but...
I think it's trying to tell us all to, always be prepared for anything. For sure.
I guess. Well, back to cars. Let's talk first about IC Cars. Tell us what IC Cars is for people that maybe are just tuning in for the first time or never heard of IC Cars before.
Yeah, well, a lot like these disasters, I think a lot of people, when they want to go buy a car, they feel like that's their own personal, natural, or financial disaster, right? They're just nervous. It's a scary prospect for a lot of people. So we've really built a site that tries to address all of that. And it's everything from all the listings of the vehicles as you're surfing across, whether it's 20-mile radius around your house or 2,000-mile radius. You can search and filter on all these things: type of car, gas mileage, pricing, years, all that kind of stuff. So you can find all the cars. But then we supplement that with what we're going to talk about today, which is just an ongoing stream of studies and advice and guidance about what's going on in the car market. So you're trying to figure out what's the best time of the year to buy, or what cars have come down the most, what cars are losing the most value, or in this case, what cars are going to give you the most reliability for the price. How do you pay the least and get the longest lifespan for a new car?
Well, that's a really good point. And the idea of the average price of cars today, what is it? It's closing in on $50,000, and people are keeping their cars 12 years now or so. So people may have not been car shopping for over a decade, and they might be a little bit shocked at how much money you can spend.
That's exactly right. And a lot of people, even if they had planned to buy a car in the last 5-6 years, they maybe held off because they saw prices skyrocket, and with COVID and the shutdown of new car production, which made new and used car prices shoot up. And maybe now I think we're seeing this. We're seeing a lot of people who have kind of surrendered to the new reality of pricing, and their car is worn out and they need one. And so maybe they buy a new to them used car, which, by the way, we scheduled this when we'd just done the new cars, the most reliable new cars for the money. We now have the most reliable used cars for the money study. It just went up like 3 days ago, so we can talk about both. But we want people to feel like if I have to come back into this market at these prices, at least give me a car that gives me the best value. And really, what's value? It's buying the longest lifespan and the most reliable car at the lowest cost.
Yeah, and it isn't. The lowest cost isn't always the best deal, because you may find something's cheaper, but reliability's not there.
Right.
And even to the point where you look at cars and car pricing, and maybe that Toyota Corolla that looks like it's a good vehicle, but the nearest Toyota dealer is 100 plus miles away. Maybe looking at it and going, maybe that Mazda 3 might be a little bit better deal for me because the Mazda dealer is 5 miles away.
Right. And those are all the things you want to take into consideration. And that's kind of the idea here is if we lay out the basic cost structure and the cars that have the best possibility for long life and a low cost, then you plug that into your circumstances. What's your budget? Where do you live? What dealers? And of course, believe it or not, maybe at some point in there, what car you like too, maybe styling or interior design and control system and all. So you want to weigh all of that stuff against kind of the cost that we lay out for you.
So it still does come down to budget, needs, and desire, right?
Yeah. And one thing I always try to tell people is think first and foremost about what you need versus what you want. Depending on your financial situation, people buy multiple cars and they spend a lot of money and they get exactly what they want. But I think for plenty of people, the car is the second most expensive part of their monthly budget. And the worst thing you can do is spend that kind of money and then realize the car that you got doesn't work for you. It doesn't serve your needs first and foremost. You went out and you were like, well, that car I just fell in love with. It's like, well, did you fall in love with a car with enough cargo space, enough rear seat leg room, whatever your needs are, that's good in snow, whatever your needs are. So always try to put those needs first and keep those primarily in mind before you fall into the wants thing.
When you're at a dinner party, a barbecue, and somebody asks you advice, do they ever really listen?
Well, there's all sorts of jokes that all car people tell each other and stuff. Like for instance, when someone says, "What do you think of such and such?" Give this make or model. The first proper answer is, "Well, what do you drive?" Because what they're usually saying is, "What do you think of the car I drive?" But they don't word it that way. And if you don't ask, and you're like, "Oh, those cars are terrible. I can't believe anyone buys them," So you always want to ask, And then the other thing is, should I get one of these? As you just said, John Paul, is usually, I'm about ready to buy one of these, and I want you to validate it. It's not usually, I'm completely open-minded, and you tell me, please, what I should be buying. That's not usually what. So, you have to go into these conversations with people kind of knowing what the common, not always, but the very common circumstances.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think of the Subaru Impreza? And you're right. And then it's like, well, I just bought it yesterday.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Well,
yeah,
or I like the ones where I get my friends telling me that they get calls from people like, so I'm at the dealer and they're telling me this, and they've never said a thing about thinking about buying a car, getting close
right.
to buying a car, what car models are they considering, what price, they're there and they're like, does this seem like a good deal? And they're sitting at the desk at the dealership. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not really the best time to call me for advice because the dealer's pretty much got you where he wants you.
That's right. Let's go through some of the top vehicles here. One was a little bit of a surprise. We'll get to that, but I guess no big surprise. Honda, Toyota, right up there in the top 10.
Yeah. Yeah, you start out with the Civic, a relatively low-priced car with a 13.7-year, predicted lifespan. Car costs around $27,500 new, which isn't the cheapest car on this list, but it's one of the longest-lasting ones. So its per-year price, if you break it down by price divided by how many years it's going to live, is just over $2,000. And if you go to the bottom of that first table in our study here, we're looking at the overall average, like you're saying, new car is almost $50,000. It's $48,106, and that means that the average price per year is $4,197 for the average new car. So at $2,006 a year for the Civic, you're less than half of what the average new car costs you per year. So yeah, the Civic's one, and then the Corolla's number two. The Mazda 3 is number 3, and the Accord is number 4, and the Subaru Impreza is number 5. So these are all, not surprisingly, relatively low-cost cars that all of us have probably heard of having a pretty good lifespan.
Yeah, and the Corolla surprised me a little bit that the expected lifespan was a couple years less than the Civic.
Yeah, I know, and this is a predicted lifespan. That what we do is we look at existing models and how long they're kept in life, and we have a lot of data here. So there's a lot of data that we churn, and we just have to come up with essentially kind of the average across all of them. And I think to the Corolla, who knows what could be pulling that average down? Is it the body style maybe that it was available in, or the owner's just not pushing them as long? Who knows? But that's it was not quite as long as the Civic.
And the Corolla's been, is it the longest lasting nameplate? It's been around for a long time, right?
Yeah, as far as like consistent production, it's definitely one of the longest lasting ones. I mean, I think, believe it or not, like the 911 is also one of the longest lasting ones from the early 60s. But it has been.
Yeah, good point. The one that surprised me was the Mitsubishi Outlander Sport. A less than stunning vehicle.
Yeah, it does have an 11.8 year expected lifespan, so one of the lower ones on this list, but it only costs $28,000.
Yep.
So it still gets in there with a $2,400 a year price per year. So it still ends up in the top 10.
And in the SUV category, kind of the perennial tie of CR-V and RAV4, kind of neck and neck in that category. Price-wise, I remember when those vehicles were under $20,000.
I know, isn't it nuts? Now we're talking $35,258 on average for the RAV4 and $36,009, just over $36,000 for the CR-V. So yeah, they're almost double what you and I remember them costing once upon a time. But still, as you noted on our study, in the top 7, best, most reliable new SUVs for the money.
Yeah, I mean it is pretty interesting. And way down at the bottom of the list, a couple of Nissans, the Sentra and the Versa. Is the company going to stay in business?
I mean, I feel like the company's got too much brand equity and reach and value to not have something happen besides vanishing. I mean, Honda obviously and Nissan were talking about a merger for a while there. Now apparently that's off the table again. But it's just hard to believe that somebody or group of buddies isn't going to show up on the doorstep if Nissan gets to a certain stage and be like, look, and honestly, some of them might be thinking that it's like, well, let that simmer a little longer. We want the stock a little lower before we run in there. But it's hard to believe it could just vanish, a company that big.
Yeah. I don't see it either. And I happen to be driving the Armada this week, and for big SUV, it is a pretty phenomenal vehicle. And with the new V6 in it, got more power than the old V8. I mean, it's a very, very good vehicle. I had 4 people in it yesterday. We went on a 100-mile plus mile drive, and everybody said how comfortable it was, how good they thought it rode. So the idea that something like that would disappear is just kind of makes me shake my head a little bit.
Yeah, that's what you want to think. It's the only thing more tragic than a car company going out of business is a car company going out of business when it's still offering great product. But and great products are a huge part of the equation. But there's a lot of other stuff too. Costs and investments and leadership and long-term planning. You got to get a lot of things right to keep a car company in business. The product's one of the most important things, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah. You mentioned best used cars for the money, and that survey just came out. Tell us, like reliability wise, what's looking good, and what's the typical used car transaction price these days?
So the average 5-year-old used car, which is what we used for this study, is $26,206. So not quite half of a new car price. And these are 5-year-old used cars, what we kind of targeted that year, so that old. And not surprisingly, you're going to hear a lot of similar nameplates here. Honda Fit versus the Civic is number one here. And, this one's number one on our list. It's $18,336 is the average list price for a 5-year-old Honda Fit. Lifespan remaining is 11.6 years. Pretty impressive when it's already 5 years old. And that means the price per year is $1,583. So, interesting because the new car, the Honda Civic, which was the number one car on the new list, was just over $2,000. So you're not saving a huge. You're only saving about $500 on the number one car here, but that's a big deal, for a lot of people. And the total cost again, $18,000 is a chunk less than that Civic at about $27,000. It's almost $10,000 less. So still, unfortunately, you're not saving as much money as a lot of people would like on the used side because used prices are at close to their record highs. They've come off a little bit from where they were in like 22, 23. But you still can save money off new cars, just not the kind of money you used to save.
And that's these are also the cars, the 5-year-old cars. Those are the cars that car dealers kind of live and die by too. The almost new used cars, the 1-year-old car. They're not the ones that they're really selling. It's the more affordable 4, 5, 6-year-old car, right?
Well, especially now because, as you noted before, people are keeping their cars longer, and it's because of the cost of the cars. And the good news is that if there's any good news in the midst of all these high prices for new and used cars, is that they do have longer lifespans, that you can make a car go longer. And I think there's been a realization across a large percentage of consumers that for a long time it was like, well, I just paid off my car or I just finished my lease. What's next on my thing? And I think people are starting to realize the beauty that I've been trying to explain for years to people of no car payment. If you've just paid your car off, just keep it now and don't have a car payment. If you've just finished a lease, maybe, buy a car next time around and not have a lease and not have a perpetual payment every month that goes to owning your car. And I think that's what people are starting to realize, and we're seeing that in the length of time people are keeping used cars.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, leases are great for some people, but a lease is just a way that you're going to pay car payments forever. Right.
Yeah, every month you got to pay money toward your car ownership. And again, it works for some people. If you don't want to ever deal with a car that's out of warranty and you like having a new car every 3 years. But these are luxuries a lot of people can't afford now at the price of new cars. And I can't believe, what you hear new car loans and leases going for, John Paul. Can you? I mean, the monthly payments, I'm just like, what?
And the length of loans that people are getting these days.
Yeah.
I guess I'm old enough where I remember that, it was, the 3-year loan was sort of standard. Then all of a sudden it was a 4-year loan, and then the 5-year loan, and people were like, 5 years? What are you, crazy? And now all of a sudden you're seeing 7, 8-year loans.
Yeah, 8-year loan on a car, which means that car cost you a lot of money because by the time you've paid off an 8-year car loan, you paid a lot more than MSRP for it.
Yeah, probably twice what the value is worth, and without doing the math, who knows? But yeah, absolutely, it is just one of those things that you look at and you go, Oh, why would you do that? And the idea that in that time frame, it's going to break down. You're going to do repairs. So
Yeah,
where you would normally get a car loan for 3 or 4 years, maybe even 5, and you budget a little bit every month to be able to handle the brakes and the tires and suspension repairs and things like that. All of a sudden now you're paying that payment and you're paying for those repairs at the same time.
Yeah, and hopefully nothing major. Again, thankfully the cars are more reliable, so usually major components aren't failing on you. But like you said, you're doing tires after 8 years. You're doing brakes. You might be doing cooling system work and all, because that's a long time.
Yeah, yeah. And kind of looking through the list of best 5-year-old cars for the money, the one that sort of surprised me was the one that came in number 2, the Volkswagen Passat, only because it's a Volkswagen. I don't, and not that we have 2 of them in our family, but the idea that they're great riding cars. The interiors are the best for the money, I think. Sometimes I wonder about reliability and value, though.
Right, and again, you'll note that it's got a 9.6. It's 2 years off that Fit that's number 1, so it's 2 years off. But it's even less expensive. It's another almost $1,000 cheaper. So it's kind of like that Mitsubishi thing. This is not about the longest lasting car. It's the longest lasting car divided by what it costs you, and that's a lot of people, they can't necessarily buy the longest lasting car because the Toyotas and Hondas tend to hold their values so well that makes them harder to afford. But Mitsubishi's, Volkswagens, maybe you can jump into those things and still get a decent per year price that you pay for how long it lasts.
Yeah, and you're right. And cars lose value, and that can be great for the person who's going to buy them. I was in a very affluent little shopping center yesterday, and with some folks that I know, and we walked by. I would guess it's a 2014, 2015 Rolls-Royce Wraith, I think. And I'm like, that car probably lost $150,000 in the last 8 years. And they're like, well, that's crazy. What do you mean? And I said, well, that was, I don't know, $225,000 car that you could probably buy for $100,000 now.
Yeah. No, that's the other thing is like you just said, it's not a good thing to buy a car that's going to lose a lot of value, but it's a great thing to buy a car that has already lost a lot of its value if it's an otherwise clean car. And of course, when you're buying a used car, you want to do a pre-purchase inspection. You want to make sure that you're saving that money, but it's not going to cost you more. The joke is nothing's more expensive than a cheap luxury car, right? That's the joke. Right. People see, I can get a BMW 7 Series for that. It's like, well, yeah, it's a 7-year-old BMW 7 Series. What are you going to pay every year after you buy it to keep it going? But so you got to weigh those things. But flip side is, John Paul, I look at my fleet that's in the family right now, and I've got a 100,000+ mile car that my daughter's driving. It's a 1988 Pontiac Firebird Formula 350, believe it or not, and that thing just keeps going. It actually popped a heater hose on her when on her way to work on Friday, but we got it over to the shop that we use. Guy replaced both heater hoses and the upper and lower radiator hose just to take that variable away. And it's still, it was like $500, but now how much longer will that car run? And $500 in a world where people are paying $700-800 every month for their new car loan or even lease. It's like, we're not going to pay $500 every month to keep that car going. So we're still coming out good. And it's got 115,000 miles on it. So I just picked up for my son a 2004 BMW 325 Xi, a little all-wheel drive sedan 3 Series from that E46 era that I love. And the car cost me $3,800, and I've probably put about $1,500 into it to fix a bunch of stuff. But again, I'm into the car for around $5,500, and it's got 175,000 miles on it. And a lot of people are like, I'm not taking on a 175,000 mile BMW. I agree. You don't want to do that unless you know the car ahead of time and really inspect it, and you have a shop that you can lean on that's not going to kill you. I have both of those skills, and now my son's driving a $5,500 BMW that's really a nice car. It drives great. It's in great shape and all that. So there are alternatives to buying these new or even 5-year-old used cars, but you got to be prepared to deal with everything you're talking about.
Now, I remember years and years ago, you and I talked, and you had quite the hot rod at the time. Do you still have your Ford GT?
So I did have that Ford GT. So I had two. I had an 05 Ford
Yep.
GT. I kept it for 13 years, put about 31,000 miles on it, and then sold it to Doug DeMuro. So he's got my car now. And then I had a new GT, a 2019 Carbon Series, and I kept that for about 3 or 4 years. 3 years, yeah. And then I sold it almost 2 years ago, May of 23. I sold that one. And I did fine on both those cars. Here's the other joke that I always feel like it's hard to explain to people. That I'm always Mr. Don't spend too much money on a car. And then they're like, what? Look at what you're buying. And it's like, yeah, well, there's actually two ways to go. You spend as little as you can on the best car you can buy. That's what these most reliable lists that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Or you spend stupid, crazy money on stupid, ridiculous cars that hold or go up in value after you buy them. Now, that takes a lot more money, and there's a little bit of a dice roll because you're never really sure when you do that. But I did well on both those Ford GTs because I was willing to spend the upfront cost, keep them in great shape while I had them, and still even enjoy them. I put 10,400 miles on that newer Ford GT and 31,000 on the 05, and I sold both those cars for a good chunk more than I paid.
Did you sell the newer one to another YouTuber, or
No, that one I was playing around with different ways to get rid of it, but I actually found a high-end exotic car dealership, and I told them, this is what I want. I need this much to walk away with for the car, and everything you get over that is yours. And it took him like 2 weeks, and he said, here's your check. Car was gone. So
There you go. Is there a next car for the garage?
So the car that now replaced essentially the Ford GT is a 2012 Porsche 911 Turbo S.
Ooh.
So that was basically the top dog Porsche in 2012. Again, I tend to be a person who likes to look at cars. I'm not necessarily like I got to get the newest, latest thing. I prefer to look at a life cycle of a car over its entire history and find what I consider the moments in time. This was a peak point for the car, and then maybe it falls into a valley, maybe another peak comes. I consider the 997.2, my personal belief, peak 911. Last year that it was small. Last year it had hydraulic assisted steering for great steering feel. Mm-hmm. First gen for PDK, and a lot of people, it's like, well, if it's not a 3-pedal 911, why are we even discussing this? But the PDK dual clutch auto is so fabulous in those cars.
It shifts way better than I do.
Yeah, it's going to be faster in a 0 to 60 quarter mile, and it's going to be faster on a track. Yep. And I live in LA, and I want to be able to drive the car and not want to kill myself. So I like having the automatic if it's a good one.
Yeah.
And I found that car, John Paul, with 1,951 miles on it, and it was the most beautiful spec. All those cars are black, white, silver, or gray. All those 911, especially turbos and Turbo S's. This one's ruby red with a sand beige interior. It's just gorgeous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's always a pleasure talking to you. We always learn a lot. iSeeCars.com. Check out listings for sale. Check out the studies that you folks all put together, learn a lot. And instead of calling up Karl or myself while you're sitting at the car dealer's F&I's desk, do the research ahead of time. And and kind of look around, see what's the best value for you. And like you said, what do you need first before what do you want? I mean, like your 911 is what you wanted. Did you need a 911? Probably not. But on the other hand, your kind of daily might be something that is able to kind of do all the same things you need it to do, but also be able to take you to Home Depot.
Yeah, my daily is another older E46. Cost me $9,600, and I've put a little money into that. So my daily driver is about a $10,000 car and another 20-plus-year-old car.
Yep. So. Nope. So do your homework ahead of time. Kind of look at what you want. Put a list together. Use iSeeCars.com to kind of go through that. Look to see what's for sale. Don't limit yourself to maybe a 10-mile radius from your house. Sometimes, as you pointed out, traveling 40, 50, 60 miles away from home can save you a couple $1,000s on the price of a car. Yep.
Yes. Absolutely.
Karl, always a pleasure. Next time we'll talk from the Pomona Swap Meet.
Hopefully, I would love to be able to talk to you from there. It means that I went and I'm selling stuff.
and the difference between a hoarder and a collector is how much space you have, right?
That's exactly right, John Paul. I like that.
All right. Take care, Karl. Thanks again for joining us on this Sunday morning on the Car Doctor program.
Great being on with you, John Paul.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. You're listening to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Why did I have to stop and think for a minute? I've been on here forever now, it seems like. But yes, you're listening to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. We will be taking a break, and we will be right back in a minute. If you want to join us, 781-837-4900 is how you get through. Chat with us about your car problems. And you can even text us at 781-837-4900, which is also the text line. Maybe you just don't want to talk on the radio and you want to text us, you can do that too. 781-837-4900. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
Even car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and dining savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at aaa.com/join. That's aaa.com/join.
Won't you step into the light?
Hi, I'm Dan Chauvin. Step into the light and tune into Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James on 95.9 WATD and 95.9WATD.com. Search for Twilight Showcase on Facebook and visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tonight from 8 to 10 on 95.9 WATD. Honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. He's John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Our phone number is 781-837-4900. Let's talk to Tom from Weymouth. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, John. That was very interesting. He's a really smart guy, you know.
He is, and you know, and you know, maybe
somebody I listen to.
Yeah. Maybe someday I can grow up and be as smart as him, but I don't think so.
Oh yeah. Oh no, you're both equal. Hey, John, what do you? I would have liked to have asked him. What does he think about the electric car market now with the new president and what's going on there? Do you think?
Well, yeah, I remember asking him that once before, and he had the same feeling I did that the electric car market was being pushed more by politics than want, and
right.
At some point people are going to say, I don't really want that, and if all of these incentives and tax incentives all go away, and that formerly $40,000 Chevy Bolt that was, well, it's probably a bad example because they don't make them anymore, but or I guess they don't make them right now. But if with the tax incentives and local incentives, all of a sudden it becomes a $30,000 car, it becomes kind of a good thing. But at 40,000, it's less of a thing. So I'm pretty convinced that I think what we'll see is, and we've already seen it from the car manufacturers, they're scaling back on their electric vehicles. They're not going to be building as many as they thought, because they thought they were going to be that was going to be pretty much all of it, and now not as much as before. So I think with the new administration and everything that's going on, maybe not what everybody thought it was going to be.
What I feel, though, even if the prices come down, there just isn't enough infrastructure. I know people that have them, that kind of bought them. They went in there, here's blah, 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 and they wish they never bought it.
Yeah, it like for my... It's kind of funny. I answered this question for a column just yesterday, I think. And, for my day-to-day driving, and even yesterday I drove about probably 200 miles round trip. And I could have easily done that with an electric car. And then if I had level 2 charging at home, a 240 volt outlet at home, I would plug it in. I would still have probably in most electric cars 50, 60, 70 mile range left. But in the morning I'd wake up and I'd have 250 miles ready to go again. But in most cases, my driving today is, there's days my car doesn't leave the driveway now. Where before, when I was going back and forth to work, living in Abington and driving to Providence every day, I was driving over 100 miles round trip every day. I could do that in an electric car, and I could either charge up at work or I could charge up at home, and that would work fine. Now, to drive from home to Florida, I'm not ready to do that yet. The charging stations on the way, you kind of have to plan your route based on where you're going to stop to recharge. The Hyundai that I drive back and forth in has a fairly small gas tank, so probably every 250 miles or so is a good time to stop and fill up and use the restroom while I'm there, kind of thing. In an electric car, stopping every 200, 250 miles and finding a charging station and having to sit there for 20, 30 minutes to put 90% back in, I don't know that I'm really there to do that. Now, in most cases, if I was just driving normal drives, just going to the supermarket, going to the store, go to Home Depot, go visit friends, and drive that 100, 200 miles a day on that once a week occasion, whatever it might be, an electric car would be fine. The other problem is neither of the places where I live right now are ready to hang another 240 volt outlet somewhere outside the house, because they're both older homes and they weren't built with high electrical demands in mind. So I would have to upgrade the electrical services to be able to charge at a higher rate at home. Now, when I do drive an electric car, and I only drive 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 miles, I plug into 110 volts, and the next morning I come out and it's fully charged. So I can pretty much do what my normal driving and plug into the same outlet that I plug in anything else electric that I plug in outside my house. But to do it on a long distance basis, you would have to rely on public charging, and it's gotten better where I thought I was going to actually be driving an electric vehicle this week, and it didn't work out. But it was going to be a Chevy Silverado pickup that was fully electric, and it was a long-range version. I think it has like a 400 and some odd mile range. And now Chevrolet, like many others, you can go to a Tesla station and you can charge up much quicker at a Tesla station. And, Tesla has a pretty good infrastructure. So, between that and Electrify America and, all the other electric charging places, a little bit easier. But in the little town I'm in here, there is only 2 public charging stations that I know of, and they're both terrible. They're both 240 volts. They're low amperage. I think they can only deliver about 7 kilowatts. So it's pretty much someplace that you almost have to spend a day to recharge. Other than that, you got to drive a little bit more distance to find more charging. And you're right. In that case, the infrastructure isn't there. But every day I see Teslas and Ford Mach-E's and I saw a Lucid yesterday. I've seen a couple Rivians. So every day I see electric vehicles, and they're charging up somewhere. So I can only imagine they're just charging up at home.
I predict that Rivian will be gone in a year.
They
had a lot of government money backing them.
Oh, it did. It did, and why I think you might be wrong is Amazon buys a lot of their vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
a lot of
okay.
yeah. So a lot of the Amazon vans are electric, and I've only seen I haven't seen any here, but I've seen a couple back up north. You know, they're fully electric. They're built by Rivian, as far as I know, and you know, with them, you know, with Amazon trying to go to an electric fleet, and I don't know how Amazon delivery works, whether as a driver you have the option to own your own vehicle. They may have some deal where if you buy one of their electric vehicles or lease one of their electric vehicles as a driver, there might be some incentives to do that too. So Rivian, not so sure about, but I had somebody, they had a little delivery business, and they were interested in an electric car company. And I said, I wouldn't do it. I think they're going to go out of business. And they filed bankruptcy. Nikola, who was doing an electric tractor trailer, that company has filed for bankruptcy now. But you also have to remember back. You know, if you talk to historians, like we had last week, we had a historian on the program, and we've had others on in the past. Most of the early car companies all went out of business.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
if you look at the companies that were building cars in the 20s, 30s, you know, most of those didn't make it. And you know, same thing I think with these electric vehicle startups. I'm not sure. You know, the strong ones will make it. The ones that will have the big budgets will make it, but the other ones, not so sure.
Yeah. Well, when I talk to people who are older and things like that, you know, what I'm seeing is there's an acceptance to the non-plug-in hybrid. People are feeling okay about that as long as it has the regenerate, you know, and they don't have to deal with anything, you know, and they can just go in the gas station, you know.
Right.
So,
and even the plug-in hybrid, if you went out and bought a, you know, I don't know, Hyundai plug-in hybrid, you know, it can go 40 or 50 miles pure electric. And if you're somebody who kind of wants to balance both sides of that, you know, different than like the Pacifica plug-in hybrid minivan, I think it's only got like a 20 or 25 mile range. But the ones that are 40 and 50 miles, a lot of times that is enough to be able to kind of satisfy that electric urge. The people that have electric cars will tell you you're crazy. Now all of a sudden you got two complicated systems. You have an electric system and a gas system, so you have twice as many things to go wrong, where an electric is that much simpler. But the idea of a plug-in hybrid that I can maybe plug in every day on 110 volts, charge it up, it's not really going to impact my electric bill very much. And then on the times where I want to drive, you know, 500 or 600 miles, I want to go, you know, I want to go from, you know, home to, you know, Portland, Maine for the weekend or something. You know, you can do it and not have to worry about where you're going to stop to get electricity, because you can always stop to get gas if you need to. So it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. And the standard hybrid, like you said, the Prius that's been around forever and ever and ever, you know, people like, oh yeah, it's a little car that gets good gas mileage. And that's all they really think about.
Why can't we just have another small gas engine charging up, you know, putting out some kind of an alternator? You know, not an alternative.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what the Chevy Volt, when it came out, was they called it an extended range electric vehicle, because what it was, the gasoline engine actually ran the generator that charged the battery. So it sort of was the same idea, and that is, you know, that's basically how a, you know, diesel electric locomotive works. You know, so, and it's the same thing. You know, tugboats work that way. You know, they need that instant torque. So the motor that spins the props on a tugboat are actually electric, and it's a diesel generator that runs that motor, so you get the big torque, so they can move the ships around. You know, and that's not new technology. I mean, it was, you know, that was something back in the 30s that you kind of see those. Owen Magnetic was almost like a Rolls Royce sort of car, but it was a electric hybrid of sorts. So those are things. BMW, they had this little car called the i3, I think it was, and it was basically a little tiny electric car, but it had a two-cylinder gasoline motor with like a 2-gallon gas tank. And basically what happened was when it ran out of electricity, the gasoline engine would fire up, and the thought was it was either going to get you far enough to get more gas, or it was going to get you far enough to get it home to plug it back in again. It was a novel idea. It was cute. It wasn't. Right. It was It was a terrible car. It was a terrible car.
Even at that, the parallel not, but still, it's another inconvenience. People don't want it. They now with the gas prices. I just looked this morning. I seen $2.95. I mean, these gas prices, and people just are happy with that. I think, to be honest. Well,
yeah. I mean, I'm happy with the $1.99, but I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that in 5 years, I think. So, but the here where I am, the little town where I'm here, gas is a little over $3 a gallon. I think the local Walmart's maybe $2.99, but on average, a little bit over $3. I saw it go down a little bit as I headed further south yesterday to go visit some friends. But, I don't know if people are happy paying $3 a gallon, but they're happier paying $3 than $4.
Right. But I mean, for inflation, let's say it's 1970 and you buy a house for $30,000. Well, gas is 30 cents. So I take it into the inflation and I say, wherever gas is now 10 times, I kind of do that, and I say I think it's within reason. To me, not I don't want to spend that kind of money.
Yeah.
But, $3 is within, to me, the same as 30 cents a gallon. I don't know. That's just the way I see it relative to other prices.
Yeah, I mean, there was a there was a guy that I knew years back, and he was some kind of. He was a writer, but he wrote about a variety of different things. And he said kind of throughout history, a gallon of gasoline was worth about the equivalent of a silver dime. And I kind of looked at him and I said, well, isn't a silver dime worth 10 cents? And he said, well, when it was, when it's made, but the actual silver in it, right now, the amount of silver in a real silver dime is worth, I don't know, $2.50 or something. So it's close to that. And he said, back in the 60s, a silver dime was worth this, and that's what gasoline cost. And he said throughout history, it sort of followed the price of what a silver dime would be worth. And I don't know how much truth there was to that, but it always stuck in my head that he said it. And it's probably somewhat close. I don't know. But yeah. So, but you're right. If you look at inflation, and also, what I got paid at my first full-time job in the 70s.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
if I was if I was smart, I would have bought every house in my neighborhood when they came up for sale. But I was never that smart.
I will be saying that maybe another. Hopefully, we're not going to be saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I tied you up enough, John. Hey, thanks for the.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Why don't we take another break? Pay some bills. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. If you want to join us and chat about everything but politics and religion, I guess. No politics, no religion. But cars, car repair, stuff like that, 781-837-4900 is how you do it. Give us a call. We'll be right back.
Even car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and dining savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at AAA.com/join. That's AAA.com/join.
Hi, I'm Steve Neerman.
And I'm Holly Flanagan.
And you can hear us every Tuesday night at 6:15 on Breaking the Ice, Let's Talk Inclusion, presented by The Great Bliz.
Each week, we discuss topics important to our inclusive community.
and highlight the talents and achievements of our community members.
So make sure to tune in Tuesday night at 6:15 to Breaking the Ice. Let's Talk Inclusion, presented by the Great Liz.
Breaking the Ice, every Tuesday night at 6:15, right here on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. And you don't know what we were talking about during the break, but yes, you can also listen on your smart speaker if you have a Alexa or a Google or any of those things. Just tell them you want to listen to 95.9 WATD, sometimes even WATD. And don't be afraid you got something wrong. You might hear a little commercial before by whoever the service is providing the stream. Don't just let that play through, and then you'll listen to this fantastic station at 95.9 WATD. Let's talk to Rick in West Palm. Rick, good morning.
Good morning, John Paul. I got a question. Because now your previous call was talking about hybrids. So my question is, can a non-plug-in hybrid run without gasoline at all?
I tried it once on a Prius. I put a gallon of gas in a gas can, and I drove it till it ran out of gas, and it did not like it. When that happened, it did keep going, but it didn't keep going for very long. And I put gas back in it, and everything was fine again. It really depends on how the hybrid system works. Most of the hybrid systems, especially the older ones, the ones I tried this on, they would only run on pure electric at very low speeds, 3, 4, 5 miles an hour. So I creeped it along at 4 or 5 miles an hour, and when I tried to go a little faster than that, all kinds of warning lights came up. So a regular hybrid, not a plug-in hybrid, if it runs out of gasoline, you're pretty much stuck.
All right, so I have to remind my wife again, fill it up at night instead of the next morning.
Yeah, I suppose. Because what do you have? What does she have?
The 23 CRV Sport Hybrid.
Hybrid, yeah. Yeah, so I mean it's and it's always, no matter what kind of car it is, whether it's a hybrid or not, it's never a good idea to drive them down till the low fuel light comes on. Because
of course.
Yeah, because the fuel pump sits in the gas tank, and the gas is what cools the pump. And when you drive around with almost no gas in the car, you overheat the pump, and then you're going to end up putting a fuel pump in. So yeah, it's always a good idea to keep
my real question. Listening to your guest earlier, which was super, really enjoyed that. But the thing that I kept thinking of while listening, you're talking. He mentions the cost of a used or a new vehicle and divides it by number of years. What the cost of that vehicle is for the year. But John Paul, the major cost of owning or leasing a vehicle today is insurance, maintenance, and for those people that live in cities, parking.
Yeah,
now,
good point. Good point about parking. And you know what the real number one cost is? Depreciation. When you buy a brand new car, when you look at the actual cost, gas, oil, and tires are way down at the bottom. It's depreciation and insurance. You're absolutely right.
And talking about that person whose name I don't recall.
Karl Brauer.
He's got right, but he's got the knowledge because he knows about cars and he's got shops. Most people that are writing into you and listening to you, respectfully, are seniors. They don't want anything to do except put gas in the car. So if they're going to lease, that's what they're going to do because they know that if there's a problem with the vehicle, boom, they just bring it back and they just keep paying.
Yeah.
So you're talking about two different sets of horses.
Yeah,
so to speak.
yeah. No, for somebody who's doesn't want to worry about trying to find a good repair shop somewhere to take care of their car, A lease can be perfect for somebody who wants to go out and lease a new car every 3 years. They pay for it, but just like you said, somebody who's in their, maybe in their 30s and 40s, when they pay off that final payment on their car, it's like somebody who's a little bit older that pays their final house payment. It's like, whew, I got this new freedom now that I don't have to worry about that payment every month. And the same thing with the car. When you get to pay it off, you're all of a sudden like, hey, I can spend money on me for a while.
And just as a sidebar, I was in the dealership because I'm a stickler when it comes to oil changes, so I go to the Toyota.
Yeah.
All right. But I was in there waiting. And there was an elderly couple, and the wife was the spokesperson, and the husband actually had some increased medical issues where they had to go from a sedan into an SUV. Mm-hmm. And I guess they had, gotten from this particular dealership for years and years and years, and they were paying X amount a month. Well, when they needed to get an SUV now, the salesman said, "Well, no, that's gonna increase your monthly from maybe whatever it was, like $300-400 to like $500-600." They almost delayed. The poor woman almost fell down. Mm. Up in the Northeast, it's a lot different. But when seniors start getting into vehicles, I have my uncle just stopped driving, 80 plus, and he was paying between lease, parking, insurance, almost $800 a month for a basic Honda CR-V.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody who lived just outside of Boston. They were paying probably the same amount. They gave up their car because they found out they could take an Uber or Lyft any place they wanted to go. They get dropped off at the front door of the supermarket or the Walmart or wherever they were going, and they're like, I'm actually saving $400 a month having somebody pick me up and drop me off.
100%. 100%.
Yep.
It's just not worth it.
There are times, there's people that, love being in their own car. But, even where I am here, there's people that don't drive their car for 2 or 3 weeks in a row because they don't have any place to go. If, the idea of keeping a car and registering it and insuring it for not using it except, once every couple of weeks to go to the supermarket, yeah, it makes a whole lot more sense to either have stuff delivered or, get an Uber or Lyft and have them pick you up and drop you off. And this one guy said to me, I'm in pretty good health. He said, my knees are bad. I don't like to walk a real long distance if I don't have to. And he said, what's nice about the Uber and Lyft, they drop me off right at the front door. I do my shopping. I hit my phone. 10 minutes later, they're there picking me up. They drop me off at my front door. I walk less now than I did before. Hey, Rick, thanks for calling in. Enjoy West Palm, and we're out of time for today, but thanks for calling in as always.
Always.
All right, take care, Rick. That music means we need to go. I want to thank Karl Brauer for the executive analyst for IC Cars for calling in and keeping us entertained and informed. And, of course, Jesse on the board, keeping everything working there. So until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, and be good to your car. And if you see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Bye-bye.